Hallo und herzlich willkommen zum Talk mit Camilla Läckberg und Henrik Fexeus. Aktueller Anlass ist ihr neuer Kriminalroman Schwarzlicht bei Knaur erschienen. Ja, das ist der Auftakt zu einer spannenden Trilogie rund um Kommissarin Mina Dabiri und Profiler Vincent Walder. Sie entführen uns in eine Welt voller Täuschung, voller Illusionen und voller rätselhafter Morde. Alles Weitere dazu jetzt von den beiden, die diesen Thriller geschaffen haben. Ich freue mich sehr auf die erfolgreichste Autorin Schwedens und den weltweit bekannten Mentalisten. Also Camilla und Henrik, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
This new novel you created is great, such great stuff. But first of all, I'd like to know, how did you meet?
Well, we've been friends for a very, very long time, actually. We've been friends for 13, 14 years.
Yeah, it should be 14, yeah.
And we met through our publishing house. We're published by the same publishing house for many, many years. And that's where it started. We were sitting in the summer of 2019, talking about books, talking about literature, talking about ideas. And Henrik pitched an idea.
Yeah, and that was the idea of Vincent, because I had this idea that I wanted to portray a mentalist in a more honest way that is being done in other popular media. And so the idea of Vincent was there, and the mystery, and I pitched this to you, and you brought along all the crime elements, yeah, which wasn't there beforehand. And then the ball just started rolling. The strange thing is that we've known each other for so long time, but we've still, we hadn't by then considered ever working together.
Never.
Because we were doing some very different things.
And also, we don't like to work with other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why don't you work with other people?
Well, it's part of our personality. I'm an only child. I do not like to share. And I can get quite bossy when it comes to my ideas. And I don't think you're quite comfortable with like team activities either.
No. I was never good at team activities like football or stuff like that. That wasn't for me. Mainly because I think what I want to do throughout my entire life, whatever I wanted to do, other people just thought that was a bit too weird. So I was just used to doing stuff on my own.
Well, to be quite honest, we're both two quite awkward people. So it's quite weird that this has worked so well as it has, because it has worked fantastically well.
Absolutely. I do a short summation for our German audience. Ich fasse ganz kurz zusammen. Also die beiden sagen, eigentlich ist es erstaunlich, dass sie sich schon so lange kennen, 13, 14 Jahre, und noch nicht auf die Idee gekommen sind, zusammen zu arbeiten. Das war dann vor 3 Jahren der Fall. Sie haben sich zusammengesetzt und da meinte Henrik, ich würde gern mal einen Mentalisten realistisch darstellen, und Camilla hat daraus dann diese Geschichte, diesen Thriller entwickelt. Und sie sagen, eigentlich mit anderen Menschen wollen sie gar nicht zusammenarbeiten. Sie fühlen sich selbst so ein bisschen als Außenseiter, als seltsame Menschen, sagen sie. Aber in diesem Team hat es wirklich super funktioniert. Es geht in dem Thriller ja um Talente, und Camilla und Henrik haben auch wahnsinnige Talente fürs Schreiben und für dieses Übersinnliche, das Mentale. Wie würden Sie selbst Ihre Talente beschreiben? Waren die schon immer da als Kind? Camilla, I mentioned that both of you do have extremely highly professional talents, and you are extraordinary in things you do. So would you say this book is about talents, about the talent of the mentalist, of the talent of the detective? And what about the talents you had as a child? Have you had the talent to write even as a young girl?
Actually, I've always dreamt about becoming a writer ever since I was a very, very small child. And I started making books. I couldn't even write. I was drawing pictures and making my parents write down what I told them to write. So this has always been very, very much a part of me, and I've always been a very writing and reading person. I was a child that was sitting alone at home in my room reading books, and my mother kept trying to tell me to go outside and play, go outside and play.
Also Camilla sagt, sie hat schon immer unglaublich gerne geschrieben und gelesen, ganz wichtig. Die Mutter hat gesagt, geh doch raus, und sie wollte aber lieber drin bleiben und schreiben. What about you, Henrik? Your talents as a child, your skills?
Well, the funny thing is that I actually thought that I was going to be a writer, or rather, I love stories. So even, in primary school, whenever we had to write an essay, I always wrote a fiction story. So the things that I've been doing from then on, the fact that I've written 9 nonfiction books and so on, that was never things that I thought that I would do. So this project feels sort of, I finally found my way home, basically.
But don't forget the magic, because I don't know if you're trying to hide this.
I might be.
You might not have been the cool guy in school.
You might not
have been the cool guy in school. He was the guy that went in front of the class to do magic tricks.
Every single Friday, we had, sort of an open mic where everyone in the class could do whatever they wanted to. So I performed magic. And then I stayed in hiding for the rest of the week, basically. Then the cycle kept repeating. Yep.
Das ist wirklich sehr interessant. Henrik sagt, eigentlich wollte er immer Autor werden und das hat er dann wirklich auch gemacht, hat viele Bücher veröffentlicht und das Zaubern, die Magie war natürlich auch da, früher schon in der Schule, da hat er auch schon seine Tricks aufgeführt und die kommen natürlich auch in diesem Thriller immer wieder vor. Genau, es geht also um Magie, um Täuschung, um Illusion und deswegen möchte ich jetzt vorher noch klären, sind die beiden, die wir jetzt hier so sehen, mit denen ich spreche, sind sie überhaupt echt? Before we dig into your new novel, I'd like to check, are you real? Because we're talking about magic and delusion and illusion. Are you really real now?
No, we're what they're called. That ABBA does now.
The what?
That ABBA does now.
Avatars.
Avatars, yeah, we are avatars.
Okay, but very friendly avatars, I think.
Yeah. I have to check. Yeah, he's real. I think so, yeah. A little bit pale, but real.
We're set to friendly mode right now.
Yeah. This is long friendship talking.
Wir haben also Glück, Sie sind gerade in dem Zustand des freundlichen Avatars. Das kann anscheinend auch anders sein. Und Camilla hat dann kurz getestet und gemeint, nee, Henrik ist wirklich real. Der Thriller, der Roman, beginnt damit, dass eine junge Frau in einer Kiste, in einer Schwertkiste, in einem Schwertkasten, das kennt man ja aus der Zauberei, ermordet wird. Was war mit dieser Idee? War von Anfang an klar, dass das der Start zu diesem Buch sein wird? I mentioned the sword box and the young lady who died in this box. Have you had this scene in your mind from the beginning on, from the first place?
I think so, yes. Yeah. Because that entire thing of people being killed by illusions not having been completed, that was sort of part of the very, the first seed of the story that was always there. Because since I've always had an interest in magic, I've been long fascinated by the whole thing of putting people in boxes and the symbolic value of what do these kind of illusions represent, if not life and death and recreation, playing God, and also the gender thing and so on. So that was always there.
And we actually made a list. Remember the list?
I do.
We made a list of magic tricks that would be a great way to kill people.
Quite a long list.
Quite a long list. We had a lot to choose from. Yeah.
So it's actually when we were writing, when we were coming up to the next murder, we just took out a list about, right, which trick are we going to do next?
And how long was this list?
Well,
I think it was like 10 or 15 tricks or something.
I think
maybe more. Yeah. They're actually quite a good way to kill people.
Yeah.
Magic tricks.
Could have been a much longer book.
Not any. We didn't have any card tricks in there, though.
No.
That's the difficult.
That's a way to kill people mentally.
Yeah. Bore them to death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also die beiden haben wirklich eine Liste erstellt und Henrik sagte erst, klar, also dieser Schwertkastentrick, der war von Anfang an da, das ist ja so ein Klassiker der Bühnenillusion und Camilla meinte dann, diese Liste, die sie aufgestellt haben fürs Buch, da waren 10, 15 verschiedene Möglichkeiten und Arten, wie man Menschen über die Magie, über Illusionen töten könnte und dann haben sie immer überlegt, okay, wir brauchen wieder eine Leiche und sind dann so diese Liste runtergegangen. Wenn wir über Morde sprechen und sehr originelle Morde wie in diesem Buch, sprechen wir natürlich auch über Angst und Gewalt. Wie halten es die beiden damit? Würden Sie sagen, Sie sind selbst privat eher ängstliche Leute? Camilla, when we talk about murder and death, would you say you in private are an anxious person or are you very tough?
I actually think that it's always hard to answer about yourself. So I'll actually throw that question onto you. What am I like when I'm not writing? As I said, he's known me for a very long time.
I wouldn't say that you're an anxious person. You're probably one of the bravest persons I've met. But what does anxiety have to do with murders? Unless you're afraid of getting caught, of course. And she's not afraid of getting caught.
I would never get caught. Well, I would say that I'm quite a happy-go-lucky person. Yeah. I'm not a dark, depressive person. That is something that just comes out in my books.
Camilla sagt also, nö, sie ist eigentlich nicht so ängstlich oder gar depressiv oder so. Nee, und Henrik hat das auch bestätigt, das ist eigentlich nicht ihr Naturell. Und umgekehrt, and Henrik, what would you say, or Camilla, what would you say about Henrik?
Well, Henrik is a lot like Vincent, but you're much more socially competent. Thank God. I bet. Thank God. But like Vincent, you're also very nerdy and you're very structured and you really love going into detail and you have some really crazy knowledge about very weird things, which I love. And that makes you very fun to be around.
Also sie sagt, Henrik ist sehr, sehr wie Vincent im Buch. Das ist der Mentalist, der eben zusammen mit Mina die Fälle zu lösen versucht. Aber er beschäftigt sich auch mit wirklich seltsamen, komischen Dingen, klar als Mentalist. Aber letztlich ist er dann doch ein sehr freundlicher und sehr normaler Mensch. Sprechen wir mal über diesen Mentalisten, diesen Vincent. Das ist ja so irgendwie zwischen einem Zauberer, zwischen Psychologe. Was ist eigentlich der Unterschied? Wie würde das Henrik beschreiben? Talking about Vincent, Henrik, what would you say? What is the difference in general between a mentalist, a magician, a psychologist? Because it seems to be everything.
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe, because a mentalist is an illusionist. And as a mentalist, what you do is, look, if you perform ordinary magic, a card trick, for instance, that trick would look the same whether there's someone there to watch it or not. But with mentalism, it is all about people's behaviors and their thoughts and expectations. So mentalism why it's called an illusion is because originally it was, the illusion of being able to read minds or influence people in a supernatural way. So that is the illusion you create. And the tools used to create it are derived from psychology, but also from stagecraft, from magic, basically from wherever you want to. Someone once said that mentalism is magic for grown-ups, and I tend to agree. Does that make sense?
Ja, also er sagt, Mentalismus oder ein Mentalist, der macht eigentlich Zauberei für Erwachsene und von daher sagt er, das ist die Weiterentwicklung. Es gibt also einen Zaubertrick, einen Kartentrick und der Mentalist macht daraus eine richtig große Illusion. Also das ist auch wirklich dann Entertainment, es kommt was Übernatürliches dazu und im Buch sagt auch Vincent, ich bin eigentlich ein Entertainer. That is exactly what Vincent says in the book. He says, I'm an entertainer. So Camilla, in general, would you say I'm an entertainer too as a writer?
Yes, I've actually spoken about this a lot through the years because in Sweden for a very, very long time, it was very popular and common to write crime, but say that you had a purpose, a political or ideological purpose for writing your crime novels. And I've kind of rebelled a little bit against that and said that what's wrong with being an entertainer? What's wrong about not having a social issue or agenda that you want to address and instead just be content with entertaining people? So I would definitely sign under being an entertainer as a crime writer.
Sie sagt also ganz klar, natürlich bin ich eine Unterhalterin, eine Entertainerin und da hat sie ein bisschen rebelliert gegen viele ihrer Kolleginnen und Kollegen in Schweden, die immer etwas Gesellschaftspolitisches unbedingt drin haben mussten und sie sagt, nee, Unterhaltung, Entertainment ist auf jeden Fall auch gut. Sprechen wir über die Ermittlerin Mina, die ja mit dem Mentalisten Vincent zusammenarbeitet. Ich hatte so den Eindruck, am Anfang war sie sehr skeptisch, was das wohl für ein Typ ist, aber dann beim ersten Treffen fand sie ihn gleich ziemlich attraktiv. Wie würde das Camilla beschreiben? Camilla, how would you describe the first meeting of Vincent and Mina? I had the impression she was very skeptical, but then she felt, oh wow, he's an attractive guy.
Well, the thing is that
I am.
when we wanted to create Vincent and Mina, we wanted to create two quite odd characters that have a hard time fitting in with other people and in society, but that we wanted to describe them with a lot of love and that they could feel a connection with each other. It's two odd people that connects with each other, and that happens already in the first meeting. And yes, Mina does think that Vincent is quite hot, and since Vincent is very much based on Henrik, he absolutely refused to write any of those parts where Mina reflects on how hot she thinks Vincent is. He was like, I'll feel a bit dirty if I do that. So I've written all those parts.
Also Camilla sagt, klar, so war es auch. Also Mina hat dann gemerkt, ja, heißer Typ. Und Henrik, Sie haben es ja auch gesehen, hat dann gleich bestätigt, na klar, bin ich ja auch. Und Camilla hat auch gesagt, diese Szenen, die möchte sie immer schreiben. Wenn wir gerade übers Schreiben sprechen, wie war denn sonst die Aufteilung? Haben die beiden sich Kapitel hin und her geschickt? Wie ist dieser Kriminalroman entstanden? Camilla, you mentioned these scenes you really love to write, but basically, how did you manage to complete this novel? Did you write one chapter each and then email this thing and then talk about it, or how did you work it out?
Well, we've written the books chronologically. So the way you read them is the way we've written them. And the method we used was we would get together for a whole day, like once a week, and we would go through what would happen next and divide that into scenes, maybe 10 scenes. And then we would divide them between us. So we'll take half each. And we have been very careful not to have Henrik writing all the Vincent scenes and me writing all the Mina scenes. We've blended that totally. And after we had written the scenes at home by ourselves, we would send the scenes we've written to each other, and we were at full liberty to change and rewrite. And then we would gather again for a whole day the next week and go through the material we had, what is coming next, and divide it up again. And that's what we did until the book was finished.
And we should also point out that in all three books, we've started with a workshop where we set out the main premise, the story arc, what's going to happen with these characters. So we always know where we're going.
Yeah, like a map.
Even if we don't have, the particulars, we know where we're headed. We basically, when we started writing the first book, we already had the ending of the third one.
Yeah.
Wow, that seems to be very good planned, and that seems to be that you are very disciplined in your work.
Well, the thing is, we didn't know how, that was a question for us as well. Yeah. How do we do this? So this way of doing it, it just happened organically.
Yeah. And we had to kind of compromise because I'm much more of a chaotic writer, and I always do everything absolutely last minute. Henrik is the exact opposite. He's very structured. He's very organized. He's very detail oriented. So we had to kind of find a middle ground. I cannot work 100% like you do. You cannot work 100% like me. So we had to kind of meet in the middle.
Do you remember like the first day we were going to write? I had written, because we had some scenes, I had printed them all on small index cards. I think I had like 100 of them. And I tried to lay out this tree structure on your table to visualize the story.
I covered my whole table with these cue cards with the scenes written on. And I was like, no, this is not what we're going to do.
It's a learning process.
Yeah.
Also die beiden sagen, das war ein Prozess und sie mussten schon ihre unterschiedlichen Arbeitsweisen miteinander verbinden. Camilla sagt, sie schreibt ein bisschen chaotischer. Henrik ist sehr, sehr geplant und organisiert. Ja, Disziplin gab es auf jeden Fall. Sie haben sich zu Beginn einmal die Woche getroffen, haben alles durchgesprochen und hatten dann wirklich für alle 3 Bände, es soll ja eine Trilogie werden, hatten sie genau schon die Überlegung, so fängt's an und so werden wir dann durchgehen. Und sie haben auch wirklich geschrieben, wie wir das jetzt im Buch lesen. Aber trotzdem 2 sehr unterschiedliche Arbeitsweisen. Es ist so, es wird, weil das so ein besonderer Fall ist und diese junge Frau, die Ermordete in dem Schwertkasten, ein Riesenrätsel darstellt. Deswegen gründet die Polizei eine Spezialabteilung. Was ist das für eine Abteilung? Welche Kollegen sind da mit dabei von Mina? I mentioned the Special Department of the Police, which is able to solve this case, hopefully. Could you please tell us a bit about this department? Who is in it? Seems to be that there are odd people too.
Well, everyone in this department is there because they couldn't fit in the place where they were supposed to be for a myriad of reasons.
It's like a leftover department.
Yeah, it's the leftovers. It's the special people without special skills.
Yeah.
Well, they do
have special skills.
They do have special skills. So we have Ruben, who has made himself impossible because he's such a male chauvinist, but he's also really, really good at recognizing people and remembering people. And
we have Christer, who is a grumpy, bitter, negative old police officer, but he's very, very good at finding data and going through a lot of information and finding.
And we have
finding patterns.
Julia, who leads the group, who's a very strong team leader. But since she's also the daughter of the chief of police, she has to deal with rumors of nepotism.
And then we have Peder, who is very tired because he just had triplets. So he's basically sleeping on the job quite often. But his skill is he can go through enormous amounts of information and find that little nugget that leads the investigation forward. Have we forgotten anyone? No, I think that's...
That's the main one. So then we have Milda,
but that's the main ones in the group.
Also es ist eine ganz spezielle Truppe und Sie sagen am Anfang spezielle Menschen ohne spezielle Kenntnisse, aber das stimmt natürlich nicht. Sie haben sehr, sehr gute Kenntnisse. Sie haben alle wirklich Talente, die Sie in Ihrem Bereich dann einsetzen. Und das ist eine Gruppe, die genau deswegen, weil sie eben anders ist als die anderen Polizisten und Ermittlerinnen, besondere Dinge können und dann auch auflösen. Zum Beispiel setzen sie sich mit Mina und Vincent hin und untersuchen nochmal ganz neu die erste Leiche. Die hat eine Schnittverletzung, auf der wirklich seltsame Dinge, ein Code vielleicht, eine Ziffer zu sehen sind. Was kommt dabei raus? With the first dead body, the dead young woman, there is a cut, injury, and Vincent is observing it and examining it. What is the result?
Well, how much spoilers do you want?
You don't have to tell it.
Well, we can say it's Roman numbers.
Yeah. It's a Roman numeral, and that will lead them onto a puzzle that we jokingly call this book the Da Vinci Code meets crime. Yeah. Because we very much enjoy building these very, very intricate puzzles. Which will become a journey for Vincent and Mina they need to solve all these riddles to be able to find the murderer.
Also Sie sagen, wir sollen nicht zu viel verraten, sonst ist die Spannung schon weg. Aber was Sie sagen können, es geht um römische Ziffern. Also auf dieser Leiche ist eine Zahl 3. Da stellt sich natürlich die Frage, ist das jetzt ein Serienmörder? Geht es hier um einen Countdown? Und Henrik meinte noch, das ist so eine Art Da Vinci Code mit Kriminalelementen. Das beschreibt es eigentlich auch sehr, sehr gut. Ein Zitat von Vincent aus diesem Buch, er sagt, ich glaube, wir suchen jemanden, also den Täter, der einerseits komplett verrückt ist und andererseits auch nicht. Wie meinen die beiden das? I quoted Vincent in the book. He says, I think we are searching for someone who is on the one side completely crazy and odd, and on the other side, he isn't. What does he mean?
Well, I can't actually go into that without telling you
But to have a general discussion about that, I mean, there's something about murders and murderers that really questions what is rational and rationality, because it's not actually a rational thing to kill another human being, but a lot of people who do actually believe themselves that they have a rationality in it. So it's something that's very, very hard to grasp, what is logical and rational and what is crazy and unstable.
And in the book, of course, Vincent finds evidence of actions that are completely irrational, and then again, actions apparently being perpetrated by the same person who is by then very rational and logical and planned. So there's a dilemma there when it comes to the psychological makeup of the killer.
Bei der Untersuchung des Persönlichkeitsprofils des Täters ist es wirklich ein Dilemma, sagt Henrik, denn auf der einen Seite merkt man, das ist ein komplett irrationaler Typ, der anscheinend irgendwas tut, und auf der anderen Seite, komplett gegensätzlich, merken sie, doch, er macht Dinge ganz bewusst, und genau in diesem Zwischenbereich scheint sich dieser Täter zu bewegen. Also mal verrückt, mal flippt er aus, bringt jemanden um, mal macht er etwas ganz geplant. Und es verdichten sich die Hinweise, dass es sich um jemanden handeln muss, der mit Zauberei zu tun hat. Das finde ich auch eine ganz wunderbare Idee, dass man merkt, oha, der Mörder, wirklich ein Zauberer. I thought it's a wonderful idea that during the book and getting more and more of your story, and there's another dead body, and then you realize, okay, the murderer has to be a magician. That's really wonderful.
Well, thank you, I suppose.
And is this an idea that was in your mind from the first place, that you thought, okay, we have to give our readers the impression that this guy is as talented as Vincent, for example, is?
Well, I suppose because the reason Vincent is being brought on board is, yes, to profile the killer, but also because he has magical knowledge, and the police quite soon realize that they deal with someone with a magical expertise. So that was always there.
I mean, the basic idea was that we said that what if someone would kill people by magic tricks deliberately gone wrong? So it all started about, thinking about the symbolism in magic tricks, with women being, dismembered and pierced by swords, etc.
And these aren't even really magic tricks gone wrong. They're just magic tricks being stopped midway through. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because if it had been the proper trick, the girl or the boy would be put together again. Yeah.
How often is it in real life, Henrik, that real tricks doesn't work, that in front of an audience in a theater, it doesn't work, illusion doesn't work?
I would say probably every single magic show ever. There's something that didn't work the way it was supposed to. But most of the times, luckily enough, they don't lead to, severe injuries. They can.
Just embarrassment.
Just embarrassment.
Yes.
But I mean,
bad enough.
The trick in the book where Vincent stabs his hand on paper cups or paper bags with a nail in them, that is a classic one that every single performer who's done it, sooner or later, they stab their own hand. It's inevitable. It will happen at some point.
Es kommt also wirklich vor, dass die Tricks auch bei Profis daneben gehen, sagt Henrik. Das kann man nicht vermeiden. Bei so vielen Auftritten ist das auch bei Tricks, die immer wieder vorkommen. Und generell ist es natürlich auch so, dass der Mörder im Buch Fehler macht, hoffentlich Fehler macht, damit die beiden Ermittler auch ihm auf die Schliche kommen. Wir haben ja schon drüber gesprochen, dass dieser Vincent ein sehr seltsamer Typ ist, dass Mina auch irgendwie nicht so recht weiß, wie sie mit ihm zusammenkommt. Können die beiden vielleicht noch verraten, vor allem Camilla vielleicht, wie es weitergeht mit den beiden, also sowohl privat als auch bei dem Fall, ohne zu viel zu verraten. Camilla, is it possible to reveal a little bit about the connection between Mina and Vincent? You mentioned in the beginning it's not clear, there is an attraction, on the other hand there is skepticism. How is it going on later?
Well, there is tension between them. And I think the main reason is that for Mina, it's the first time in a very, very long time that she feels that someone actually understands her. Otherwise, people in general just think that she's basically weird. Vincent doesn't see her as weird. He sees her as a person, and he understands her quirks. But we do have one fun thing about Mina, because we started writing the book and we created the characters before the pandemic. And we thought we really went out on a limb when we made Mina so bacteriophobic that she was constantly washing her hands with alcohol gel, and she was spraying things, and she was wiping everything off, and she wanted, to have mouth covers. So we thought that we made her too extreme, and then the pandemic happened, and suddenly she's quite normal. We did not plan for that to happen.
And we can also say that there is another reason for Vincent to wanting to be in Mina's presence and enjoying her company, but that will not be revealed until the very end of part 3.
We could tell you, but then we'd have to kill you, so... That would be unfortunate.
Yeah, you shouldn't do it.
No.
We're out of chance. We can go everywhere.
Yeah.
Also Sie sagen, ein bisschen was muss geheim bleiben, sonst müssten Sie uns alle, die jetzt zugucken, auch noch töten, weil wir dann das Ende dieses Romans kennen. Und kurz noch zur Geschichte vorher. Ja, Mina, es gibt wirklich Spannungen zwischen den beiden, Mina und Vincent, aber sie spürt, dass Vincent einer ist, der sie wirklich zum ersten Mal versteht und der all ihre Macken versteht. Sie hat auch eine ganz besondere Macke, sie muss alles immer ganz sauber und gereinigt haben und die Idee dazu hatten sie vor Corona, vor der Pandemie und jetzt stellt sich das als ganz normal raus. Davor war das irgendwie wirklich eine ziemlich heftige Macke. Basiert die eigentlich auf einem realen Vorbild? Wie hält es Camilla mit Oberflächen und Sauberkeit? Is Mina with her quirk based on maybe you, Camilla?
No, I'm actually quite the opposite. When it comes to, I based Mina's bacteriophobia on a friend actually who's very, very bacteriophobic. I'm the absolute opposite. I had one party trick before Corona, and that is that I can lick on almost anything. Give me a random person's iPhone, and I can lick that without any hesitation. But then the pandemic hit, and no one thought that was funny anymore. So I had one party trick, and COVID took that away from me.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah, sadly. I have to develop a new one. I'm not quite sure what to do.
Well, you could...
Card tricks, maybe.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Camilla sagt, sie ist eigentlich genau das Gegenteil von Mina. Sie hatte immer einen Party-Trick vor Corona. Und zwar hat sie einfach an allen Dingen von fremden Leuten geleckt, hat gesagt, gib mir das, ich leck auch dein Handy ab. Jetzt geht das natürlich alles überhaupt nicht mehr. Und diesen Tick hat sie von einer Freundin abgeschaut und dann im Buch eingebaut. Jetzt sollten wir vielleicht noch kurz drüber reden, wie ist es denn eigentlich mit dem Gedankenlesen? Henrik hat das ja schon erwähnt, das gehört zu dem Können eines Mentalisten. Kann Henrik das wirklich machen? Hat er auch von Camilla die Gedanken gelesen? Henrik, you mentioned reading somebody's person's mind, that this is important for a mentalist. So can you do it? Did you do it with Camilla?
I think he tried, but there's too much Real Housewives up here, so he got bored.
It's such a mess in there.
Yeah, it's such a mess in there.
I wouldn't dare to. Sometimes Camilla tries to send me a specific kind of energy, and the energy says, go and get me a cup of coffee. I pretend to not listen.
Yeah.
Also er sagt, manchmal ist es so, das stimmt, es funktioniert, dann sendet Camilla irgendwelche mentalen Nachrichten, bring mir bitte einen frischen Kaffee und dann macht er das natürlich auch, aber sonst nicht. Nee, aber jetzt nochmal ernsthaft nachgefragt, ist das auch nur eine Illusion? But seriously, is this just an illusion that you are able to read somebody's mind?
Well, I must say first, though, that I've talked to his wife about that and said that it must be so easy for you at home because he's so good at reading signals and reading women's minds. And she hasn't stopped laughing yet.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as I said earlier, mentalism is an illusion, and you create the illusion of being able to read minds. And you use several different techniques to do that. And if I perform on stage, I am in an environment where I control all the variables. I control the lighting, the temperature, where people are seated, and they don't know what's going to hit them. So in that very controlled environment, it gets much easier for me to do what I need to do to create this illusion of being able to read minds or whatever it is. However, in real life, I can't do it to that degree, but there's always a certain amount of mind reading, if you will, going on, meaning that we all are observing each other's facial expressions, body language, and so on. And we pick up subconscious signals that will inform the way that we communicate with each other. And I've just made it my job to be aware of those signals and what they mean.
Also Henrik sagt, es ist ganz wichtig, dass man auch andere Informationen bekommt. Das Unterbewusstsein reagiert auf viel, viel mehr. Also wir senden Informationen aus und wenn man die sammelt, wenn man aus denen etwas macht, dann entsteht so etwas wie Gedankenlesen. Und er sagt auch auf einer Bühne, wenn das alles vorbereitet ist und wenn er sich auf eine Show entsprechend auch vorbereitet hat, dann klappt das natürlich besser als zu Hause in der Realität. Wobei Camilla sagte, man müsste eigentlich Henriks Frau fragen, denn die weiß und hat ihr auch bestätigt, dass er unglaublich gut ihre Wünsche lesen kann und deswegen ein anscheinend sehr guter Ehemann und Vater ist. Wir kommen so allmählich zum Schluss von diesem Talk, aber mich würde noch interessieren, nachdem das ja als Trilogie angelegt ist, können die beiden uns noch ein bisschen was verraten über die nächsten beiden Bände? We mentioned within this talk that this is going to be a trilogy. Could you reveal a little bit about the next forthcoming novels?
And we're actually at the final stages now of editing book number 2, which is called Cult, which is quite a big giveaway of the main theme in the book. There is a cult or more cults, several cults. And if the first book was Vincent's story mainly, this will be more Mina's story.
Yeah. And then I don't want to say too much about the third book yet, but we could say that in the third book, it all will come together.
And we have a title for the third one, Mirage. And we have a storyline that will go over all 3 books. You can read them independently, but there's also a storyline that has a start in the first book and an end in the third book.
And it will end.
Ja.
Also es wird ein Ende geben und es stehen schon die Titel der beiden weiteren folgenden Bände fest. Es wird dann auch, nachdem es im ersten Band ja mehr um Vincent ging, im zweiten mehr um Mina gehen und man kann alle für sich stehend lesen, aber es gibt trotzdem natürlich eine Geschichte, die sich durchzieht. Vielen, vielen Dank nach Stockholm, nach Schweden für dieses Gespräch. Es war unglaublich toll, mal so ein bisschen hinter die Kulissen zu blicken, des Gedankenlesens, des Mentalisierens und natürlich hinter die Kulissen von Schwarzlicht, dem neuen Kriminalroman. It has been a great, great pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much to you, Camilla and Henrik. And all the best.
All the best. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye, bye.